What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video. This one's going to be for the last game of the weekend I'm going to cover. I've already done a bunch of videos on the channel for some other of the World Cup warm-up games. You can go check out all of them after this one if you haven't already. This one, though, is for Argentina versus the Springboks. Now, we got to see the reverse fixture of this one last week, which was a real tight affair, right? 1 point in it by the end. A really tough game to watch for me as a neutral. Really just rough game, very choppy, very stop-start. Neither team really, grasped the game and ran with it. The referee making a lot of penalty decisions. Both teams having a lot of handling issues and discipline issues. So a bit of a choppy game. I think both teams will be looking to improve as we get into this one, and especially building towards that World Cup. So we're going to have a run through of the teams that have been picked for this rematch game, who we think some good picks, maybe some questionable picks, maybe some thoughts on why players have been chosen, and finally, of course, giving a score prediction, which I tend to get wrong most weeks anyway. If you enjoy this style of content, make sure to drop the video a like, and if you want to keep up to date with all the latest videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps support the smaller channels on YouTube who enjoy doing a bit of talking about rugby and what have you. So, starting out then with the South Africa team that has been named today. Now, normally when I do these preview videos, I try and avoid the team as best as I can. I just try and grab the graphic and then I start filming a video. Unfortunately for this one, South Africa have started putting out some quite interesting graphics for the World Cup build-ups. They've got pictures of all the players and stuff. They're not very easy to incorporate into a video, so I've actually had to go away and make my own list of the players. So I've actually had a little bit more of a look through the list for this one than I typically do for some of the videos. Now, looking at this South African team, just on the whole, there's been a lot of changes made. I did read some of there was 14 changes made to this South African team compared to the team last week, and there's a couple of ways you can interpret that. Is it a case of that, the management just wasn't happy with the performances put in last week, and so the whole team's getting chopped down? Or is it more of a case of the Rugby Championship is now over? That game was one game. It was focused on the Rugby Championship. They came second in the Rugby Championship. And now that we're on to the World Cup warm-up games, they need to be testing out some of the other players and who's going to fill in that position. I think it's more to do with the latter. I'm sure the performances overall won't have been the most impressive for the coaching staff, but I definitely think this team screams to me that they're testing out who's going to fill in each of those different positions, what sort of partnerships they're going to work on for the World Cup. So starting out of this front row, Trevor Nyakane goes in alongside of Bongi Mbonambi and Thomas du Toit. Now, Trevor Nyakane is a name I feel like I haven't seen in a long time in this this South African team. Stephen Kitchoff doing so well in that loose head position. Mbonambi going back in that starting hooker position. I did think Malcolm Marx was playing well last week. Joseph Dweba is on the bench for this side as well. So Malcolm Marx not in this team, which is why I think it's more of a case of they're not just picking the team, to win this game. It's looking ahead. It's also World Cup, testing out probably who's going to be, maybe your second choice and third choice hooker. Because for me, Malcolm Marx is just such a standout for this team. In the lock department, Jean Klein goes in alongside of Marvin Ori. So, missing a couple of the other big names like Eben Etzebeth, who had a fantastic game last week. Again, for me here, it's going to be testing some of the other players out in terms of that lock department who's going to fill in case of injuries when we get around to the World Cup. And I personally am looking forward to see a bit more from Jean Klein, because I really feel like we haven't got to see a lot from him yet. Eben Etzebeth absolutely demanding that number 4 shirt, so I'm looking forward to see a bit more from him. In the back row, Dion Forey goes in alongside of Franco Mostert and Jasper Wiese. So a nice mix-up to the back row here. This team actually on the whole begins to feel a little bit more like the team we got to see versus Australia in the first round of the Rugby Championship, and I'm looking forward to see how that goes, because I really enjoyed the mix-up in the style of play that we got to see. Libbok running at 10 as he's doing in this alongside of Kobus Reinach in that scrum half position, and the way the forwards are being picked, it's not going to be the set South African team. They're mixing up a bit, and I quite like this. I think it's a different style of South Africa, and I think that can be nice to mix up in a couple of games. We saw what happened in that New Zealand-South Africa game. They went back to more of just a typical South Africa style, and it felt like New Zealand really knew what they were doing against it. Sometimes mixing up the team, mixing up the way they're actually going to be playing it could be a really big bonus for you. Kobus Reinach, as I did mention there, in the scrum half position, of course, we didn't get to see a lot of Grant Williams. I was really looking forward to see what he was going to bring to the Springboks team, getting knocked out in that game against Argentina very early on. So Faf de Klerk having to pick up the slack there and play the whole game. Thought actually had a really good game. Kobus Reinach will be coming in. I do like him as a player. He offers a little bit of a different play style as well to Faf de Klerk, who I think is a little bit more just sort of composed. He'll be a lot more sort of your box kicking. Maybe he occasionally looks to try and go himself. Kobus Reinach can just be an absolute nightmare for defences. Can absolutely slip round the side, and he's a pacey little scrum half who can get away from you. I also quite like the speed of the game that Kobus Reinach likes to try and play out. He really likes to try and get the ball out of the ruck a lot quicker than some of the other scrum halves. So I'm sure the forwards will be looking forward to receiving some quick ball and being able to get a few more carries in this one. In the centre partnership, Andre Esterhuizen gets another game. Been waiting for it alongside of Lacania Am, who you expect to be in the Springboks team throughout most of the World Cup. But Andre Esterhuizen, I thought, played really, really well against Australia in that opening round. I was really liking what he brought to the team. He got dropped for the New Zealand game in place of Damien Dialende. Yeah, fair enough, that's a big team. I sort of expected that one. We didn't get to see him last week, which I thought was a real shame. I thought against a team like Argentina, it would be really good to see him have both games play against Argentina, but he's managing to get in for this one, so we're really looking forward to see some more monster carries from the big man. And then finally, in the back three, Mapimpi goes in alongside of Callum Moody and Damien Valemsa moving to that full-back position. Now, this is the reason why I think this is much more of a, we're looking ahead to the World Cup rather than focusing completely on just this one game. Last week we got to see Arendse and Colby on the wings. This week we get to see Mapimpi and Moody. So probably deciding for the coaching staff how they want to organise those partnerships. They've mixed about with them a little bit across the Rugby Championship. So I think this is a nice move. Who's going to be your first choice wingers, your second choice wingers? How are they going to mix and match? How are those partnerships going to work up? And then Damien Valemsa moving to that fullback shirt. Villy LaRue has been playing fullback across that entire Rugby Championship. Damien Valemsa at 10. For me, hasn't really worked as much as I was expecting it to. Marnie Libok, for me, is going to be that number one choice at 10. And so Damien Valemsa sliding back into fullback now. That's also some good practice, though, because, of course, I think Cheslin Colby can also slide back to fullback if you need him to. But Damien Valemsa has done a lot of experience in that fullback shirt as well. So, again, who are you going to be organising? Most likely, Villy LaRue is going to be your first choice fullback, but put Damien Valemsa there, get him some game time in Tier 1 rugby as well, just get him ready for that World Cup. Overall, some big switches to the team, which can sometimes come as a bit of a detriment to teams for the individual game, but I like what they're going down for testing out some of the players, who's going to fill in the different shirt positions, and hopefully we get to see a bit more of a free-flowing game in this one compared to last week. Quickly then, in terms of the replacements, as already mentioned, Joseph Dweb is going to be the replacement hooker for this one. A new name for me here, so apologies for any pronunciations. I know we have some fantastic South African subscribers on the channel who will probably help me out with some phonetic spelling down in the comments section. Gerhard Steenkamp. I'm going to have a stab in the dark. It's not a name I know at all, so I'll be keeping a special eye out for him. But like I said, if you want to help me with my pronunciations of some names, I know I don't always get them bang on. Feel free to drop them down in the comment section to try and help me out for when we get to future games. And then finished off with Vincent Koch there as well. So, I would say, Joseph Dwebber for me is certainly going to be that third choice, that hooker for me. I think there's better hookers in there, but nice to get a bit of extra game time, because I think one of the issues with having two quite strong hookers to start out with is you don't really get to see your third choice, especially with a big pool like Pool B in this World Cup. You might want to be saving those lads for the games against Ireland and Scotland. Maybe you want Joseph Dwebber to be playing some of the other games in the pool, as the starting choice, just to play against some of those tier 2 teams and keep your rest of your starting hookers safe. In the rest of the replacement forwards, then we have Jean-Luc Dupries alongside of Evan Roos, who's a name again. So much hype about this guy last year. Really looking forward. This guy's going to get in. He's going to smash that number 8 shirt. He's going to take over the South Africa team. Really haven't got to see enough of him in this the Springboks team. Jasper Wiese has been carrying well. Dwayne Vermeulen has been playing well as well. And Evan Roos, really haven't felt like we've got a bit of a look in for him. So I'm hoping we get to see a bit of game time from him. I think Jasper Wiese is probably going to be, quite set in that South Africa team as well. Hopefully, maybe we get to see a half each from these players, and I get to see a bit more from Evan Roos myself. And then in the replacement backs, Herschel Jantes goes in alongside of Jesse Creel and Kurtley Arendse, just to fill in there in case things really start to go wrong in terms of your wingers. You can chuck him on. I'm not sure if any of the current wingers also have fullback experience. I'm not sure if Arendse or kind of Moody can move back to fullback. I'm not sure entirely what would happen if Damien Valemsa picked up his injury. Jesse Creel there as well, can cover wing, can cover your centre, but I really hope we get to see Andre Esterhuizen play, most of this game, because I think he deserves a good run out in this squad. Moving on to Argentina then, who might have felt a bit hard done by last week, losing by only a point, missing some kicks along the way, and again, an issue that keeps plaguing them, just these little mistakes, trying to force it too much, giving these loose passes the ball bouncing along, and Faf de Klerk and Libbok running up the field will be, a bit of a stark reminder of what happened against Australia with Nawakanita Wase running away from them as well. Just need to hold on to the ball a bit more and stop trying to go for these little offloads and trying that a little bit too hard to get the ball shifted out wide. Sometimes going through the phases works for you, and they absolutely feel like they probably could have won that game last week. And in the spirit of that, they've gone with quite a similar team for this one. South Africa have really mixed up their team a lot going into this one, but Argentina sticking pretty similarly. So starting out in the front row, Thomas Gajo, Julian Montoya, and Francisco Gomez Cordella. So the same front row that we got to see last week. I'm trying to think back quickly off the top of my head to the scrimmaging last week. It was such a choppy game. Set pieces incredibly important against a team like South Africa, who will absolutely try and run you over. But, sticking with the same front three, they've got a bit of experience now going up against South Africa. Might be a good move just to stick with them. They have tested out their props a lot over the last 2 years and swapping them around in a lot of games. This is becoming slowly more consistent front row that they're going for. So maybe, again, they're building towards the World Cup. Just get as much game time in with these lads as you get towards that World Cup. In the lock department, Rubiolo comes in alongside Lavanini. Now, Lucas Paulos last week, I was looking forward to see him in the lock department. He didn't have necessarily the best game, wasn't making the inroads that I really thought he was going to do and grab that game. So, with Alemano missing, you think you'd want to be making the most of it. I don't think he did, and maybe the coaching staff have seen that too. Rubiolo getting his opportunity this week to really try and put his own stamp down in this game. With so many changes to the South African team, they've still got some big jumpers at that line out. But of course, they're missing, big names in that line out as well, like Eben Etzebeth this week. So every opportunity for Rubiolo to get involved and try and impress the coaches. And then finally, in that back row, Pablo Matera, Grondona, and Gonzalez again in that back three. So this is a set three they've been sticking with now because Marcus Kramer's still not in this side. And it's been okay. Pablo Matera has been quieter than I'm used to seeing him with normally so many massive carries. They have done this Pablo Matera at 6. I've always quite liked him when he used to play 8. Being able to carry the ball off the back of the scrum, but I think it'd be nice to see some more big carries from some of these lads and really try and get over that gain line, because the breakdown for Argentina has been absolutely fine. They're getting over the ball. Julian Montoya's one in the breakdown situation will actually try and win you those penalties, but sometimes the forwards not making the ground in the tackle and just sort of getting stopped dead really hurts the momentum for this Argentina team, which is why we end up seeing so many offloads and trying to force the passes rather than get over that gain line and then being able to use that momentum to keep dragging you forwards. In the halfback partnership, Bertrano goes in alongside of Carreras. Bertrano getting his try last week, going up that little short side from the ruck underneath the post. So nice to see he's getting a start in this one. They've been testing out Bazan Velez throughout this tournament, so nicely the Bertrano getting a start here. Santiago Carreras played all right last week. Defensive-wise, was doing fine. The kicking duties certainly will have been annoying for him to have missed a couple of those kicks, really feeling like that game could have been taken by Argentina. Luckily for Argentina, they do have Boffelli back in this week. I've sort of jumped ahead to the rest of the team, but there'll be a welcome sight to see Boffelli back in with his kicking ratio that he has in this team. In the centre partnership, sticking the same as last week, Chocoberra is going in alongside of Lucius Cinti. Chocoberra's made some big inroads last week as well, some massive tackles from him. And then finally in the back three, Santiago Cordero, Boffelli, as mentioned, who's nice to see him back from his injury too. I was a little bit worried he might be missing the World Cup with some of his injuries. And then a name at fullback I don't think I've said before, Bagado. I'm going to have a stab in the dark at that one. Now, Malia did get cited for the hit on Grant Williams last week. It was post-match. They've done it afterwards. Has been cited for that, so missing out on this game. So Bagado going to be getting a start in this one. I'll be keeping a bit of an eye out for him along the way, just as a new name for me. And then quickly, in terms of the replacements, Augustin Creevy, Sclavey, and Bejo coming in there. Creevy, I think, is on his 100th cap. I've been trying to find out. It's either on his 99th or his 100th cap, and I can't find anything to set it down for me as absolute fact. But I think he's on his 100th cap this week, so that'd be nice for him. In the replacement forwards alongside them, Guido Petty and Facundo Issa coming in there. Looking forward to see Issa get on this pitch as well, actually. He's another name that sort of floated around this Argentina team. Some nice game time in that second half, I think would be a world of good for him. And then in the replacement backs, Bazan Velez moving to the bench this week alongside of Albornoz and Matthias Moroni, who seems to be pretty set on that bench now. The coach is really not, giving in the starting time. So I'm guessing as we move towards that World Cup, Moroni might find himself sat on that bench for quite a few games, being brought on in that second half. For some reason, he hasn't had a lot of game time in terms of starting for the teams, even though I think he's quite a good player. But overall, the Argentina team looking pretty solid, consistent from last week, with only a couple of changes along the way. In terms of a score prediction, then. What do we think for this one? Well, South Africa mixing up the team can sometimes be a really big positive, can sometimes come as a bit of a negative to your side when you make too many changes. I want to improve on a lot of the issues that happened last week. I'm sure handling will have been worked on probably for both sides, to be fair, in the training section for this one. I'm going to lean towards a South Africa win for this one. Even though they've got a more experimental team, I imagine with the newer team will come some newer ideas of how they want to play the game. So I'm going to go for a South Africa win, and I'll say by 6. That'll be my prediction for this one, guys. So make sure you drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the team, along with your own score predictions, and make sure you are getting those score predictions up on the Super Brew if you haven't already, because there's so many teams to be picking through. That's my evening tonight, picking out all my teams for the Predictor series. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.